Cool. All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to another episode of the Financial Life Podcast. With this being another segment, the Military Monday segment, where I help to feature, introduce, promote, highlight all veterans and what they're doing, their mission, their stories, their goals, their businesses to help promote them instead of us only thinking about veterans on Veterans Day or like holidays or Memorial Weekend. Why not be year round? So that's what this is about. And before I get into that, I must do my shameless plug because it's my podcast. How could I not? You know what I mean? So some of you may know, some of you may not know. I do some things like help people with financial literacy. I have my own virtual financial literacy course for children ages 10 and up. Do some things on credit and some other stuff too, and also one-on-one coaching and group coaching. If you're interested in any one of those or like help, please go to speakwithmatt.info. Again, speakwithmatt.info. No need to put in the triple W. Takes you right to my calendar. Book a call and let's talk. Again, that's speakwithmatt.info. And this episode is also sponsored by Born to Risk, which is run by another veteran. So I'm a co-author of one of the co-authors of the book. I'm chapter 39. If you'd like a copy, please reach out to me. And all purchases that are made, the proceeds go to help other veteran organizations. So please support, get a copy, and all that stuff. With that being said, I'd like to introduce my guest, Dr. Jane. I like that. Dr. Jane. That's who she is today.
It is I,
Yeah, it is
right?
I, Dr. Jane. Oh man, she's the doctor in the house. I'd like to introduce her and have her share her story and what she's doing and go from there. But Dr. Jane, I appreciate you for being on. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me, Matt.
You're welcome.
I know we kind of went back and forth, but here we are.
I know. Finally, we get it done. It's the military, and it's like it's good. No, it's going down. It's going.
Yes. Yes.
Um,
So,
mhm.
no, I'm listening.
No, I was gonna say. So start with your story, like who you are, and what branch you serve, and that all fun stuff.
That old fun jazz.
Yeah.
So, my name is Dr. Jane. I served in the Army. I did 3.5 in the reserve and 6.5 on active duty.
Okay.
Um, and I think it was a good gig. Overall, you do have those days. I think it's like any other career profession that you're in when you're like, you ask yourself, why am I here?
Yeah.
You know, because this really sucks right now. And then you get up the next day and, okay, I'm good,
Yeah. Especially in the entrepreneur world, you're like, why did I do this? I hate this. And then you're like,
Right?
this sucks. And then you're like, oh, at the end of the day, I'm gonna sit back and relax. Then next day you're like, you know what? I got this.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I do like, I tell any young person, I think it's a good way to see the world. Because I feel like you choose your heart, right?
Yep.
As a young person, you have very little education, very little experience, um, very little of everything. And so it's a good way to build some of those experiences. It's a good way to pay for college. It's a good way to develop a network and a net worth,
Right.
um, and so forth. So overall, I must say it was a good gig,
Right. Yeah. I agree with
right?
you on that. Well, I feel like the military is best if you come in with a plan and it's something that you really want to do versus, all right, I'm just going to join it and just willy-nilly it and gamble.
You know what? I think that's the plug right there. You have to have a plan. I worked with a client. This was about maybe 8 years ago, and his question to me was, "How did I know I was supposed to go to school and go to college while I was serving?" And I was just floored and blown away by it because I was thinking to myself, "What? How could you not know?"
Right.
You know what I mean? How could you not do that? And I didn't realize, like you said, there are some people who enter the military without a plan. And we can't do that. Have a plan so that you have direction, so that on the days that suck, we can persevere.
Yep. I
Right?
like that. You're right. Because it gives you that clarity on where am I going versus I'm here. And if you do try to leave, woo, you don't want to do that. They'll come at you quick with the quickness. You
You
signed
know,
a contract. The government wants
yes,
money out of you.
yes,
Yeah.
and so that's one piece. And also our age at which we enter the military and the age at which we serve, our development. So one of the things that I would like for people to like really fully conceptualize, our 20s are our building years. They really are. And your 20s, for most people, are terrible times, right? You work the hardest, you are the dumbest,
Hmm.
you're the brokest you'll ever be in your life. However, you're trying to establish yourself professionally, you're trying to establish yourself financially, you're trying to establish and find your own sense of self. And those are huge markers and huge milestones. And that's a huge transitional piece that we're in our 20s with very little resources and
Yeah.
very little in terms of our minds. So it's a critical time. But I tell people your 20s, those are your building years. Try and get it right in your 20s, because somehow people who didn't build in their 20s, somehow their life is an endless perpetual struggle.
Yeah. 20s. Yeah, I remember being in my 20s and I had a lot of fun, but it is a lot of like just trying to figure it out until
Yeah.
like your late 20s and you're like, oh, that's what I want to do.
Yes.
I'm gonna sit you down and teach you that stuff. But yeah, you're right. I agree with you on that. And going back to the military with the plan, that if you come with a plan, and ideally if you come with the plan and something that you generally want to do, you'll go far. It's a great you can just go to the moon. The problem is if you don't do that, the military will use you for what it wants, and it'll just take you anywhere. Oh, you sign it, I got you. You're going here, 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 and you can't say anything. And some people, it's best to have a plan on that. That's what I want to say on that part because it works. There are people in there for and being there for like 20 plus years and stuff. And like I loved it. I'm like, good for you, man. You know, because even myself, I would have loved to gone up to higher rank and I saw myself as like being like a captain, but I got it. I was like, I don't like this. I mean, if anything, if I wanted like the promote wanted to go higher, it was just for the title, not for the responsibility that it came with. That was it. It's like nah.
Yes.
So
Yeah. I think also that when we think about the brain development, and that this is an important piece, I wish every parent would understand or realize. And I wish every service member, as they're exiting, also um, is conscious or aware of. So, our brain development, we have various stages of brain development. So, 0 to 5, we have massive development. And throughout, we have periods of exponential growth in terms of brain development. Between 18 to 24, 16 to 23, thereabouts, depending on which book you're reading, we have major development in our prefrontal cortex. And our prefrontal cortex is responsible for higher order functions, so decision making, judgment, reasoning, all of the critical thinking skills that we use as adults, believe it or not, is the last part of our brain to come online. And so, what that means for the individual is okay, the amount of risk that we would take at 18, 19, 20, at 24, 25, we now have a fully formed brain. And so, we're not going to take that risks at 25, 26. No, brother man, because now we understand the full implications of consequences, you see.
Right.
And so, fully understanding consequences and the implications that it has for us individual, but also for the people around us, it deters the amount of risks that we will take. Now, here's the kicker. This is why, and I'll put this question to you. At what age do we get cool insurance? What age does our insurance rate go down? The
25.
first, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why.
Because it's like you're done taking unnecessary risks because you can figure out, okay, that would make sense. That
That's
makes
the reason why. And so we're paying for the risk, those risks as young people and parents who have young children, not young children, but children in that age group. That is really what you're paying for. You're paying, yes, you're paying for the risks that your young adult are going to take or are taking. That
right.
is what you're paying for.
That makes sense. 'Cause I always wondered why. I was like, all that stuff. That makes sense. That brain development. Because I've heard, going back to what you said, I've heard that even actually now when I was a teenager, they said like there was an article in the Washington Post talking about teenage years last until 25, and I was like, that's a long time. I was like, what? But I think they're finding out that like up until like you said 24, 25, that's when your brain's fully like done developing, which is crazy. You're 20 years old and you're not there yet. But it makes sense because I remember looking back now, I'm like, I was 20, 21 to where I'm at now. I have so much more wisdom, experience, and knowledge of like, oh, I should have done that. But when you're that, you still are. I get now when people say you're just a baby, you're like, what? Like you're still trying to figure things out and you don't realize it. Like, what am I doing? I don't know. I'm just trying to go out and have a party and get wasted, and me as a guy, hopefully get some. If other than that, I'm trying to work and try. You know what I mean? It's you're trying to figure
Just
things
trying
out.
to figure it out. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And so, what I tell young people and what I tell parents when I have the conversation with them is that you have a young person that is making adult decisions with half a brain,
Oh, man, how did I survive? Wow.
right? Yeah, you're making a, and so I wish parents because it's a lie. It is a myth straight from the pit of hell when they say you're grown at 18.
Yeah,
It
you're
is a lie, right? And so we have young adults who make the decision that because they're grown at 18, they stop listening. And then you have parents who are under the guise that their young adult is grown at 18. And so that parent stopped talking.
mm,
And so we have such a disconnect. And so one of the experiments I have young people do is I tell them, go and talk to the adults in your life and ask them at what age did they make the most mistakes in their lives. And a lot of times those that age is 18 to 24, 23. And I ask them, what are those mistakes? And we would go down that rabbit hole of, well, my mom did this and my dad did that, or my uncle did this. And I mean, we would hear all kinds of stories. But the science behind it is, that large development that occurs during that time period. So the dynamics of the conversation should change for parents who have children in that age group. It's not telling that child what to do, it is teaching that child and navigating them through the decision making process, right? So if we say, okay, well, what is it that you would like to do? The child will say, blah, 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 blah. Okay, fine. How are you going to do that? And then they kind of talk it through. What do you need to get that done? And talking that through, right? Who do you need to connect with to get that done? And formulate a plan, but it's talking them through that plan. But that's young adult is formulating it for themselves.
Right.
And that is how we build cognitive capacity. And that is how we build planning, executive function. So planning, building their planning skills, building their critical thinking skills, building how their capacity or their ability to see parts and whole and to see how things connect,
Right.
you know, because those are essential life skills. You talk to a fool who can't plan, it is the most frustrating thing,
That's true.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Or you talk to a person who can't reason and you're trying to explain to the individual and you get a headache.
Yeah.
Because they lack the ability to reason, right? And so we build those skills. And so serving, and I'll bring this back to the military because that's why I went down this path. So dependent on the age where we enter the military, if we enter the military 18, 19, 20, early 20s, where most people enter, it's like we left our parents' house to go to someone else's house. And so we didn't have that period in between to somewhat build those skills because now we're in an organization that thinks for us and that tells us what to do, when you're going to do it, and how you're going to do it. Right.
Right.
And so, as the person is making that transition when it's time for them to exit, they struggle with those skills
Hmm.
because it wasn't built.
Right. Hmm. And got me thinking back to when I was, because I entered the Marine Corps when I was, yeah, 20, because I turned 21 boot camp. That was a fun time. So looking back now, and I was in college at the time and not having all the skills necessary. So yeah, I see what you're saying. No, you know what though? You're right. But I think I was more mature amongst my peer group because I remember when we ended up going to I ended up going to, I don't know. Yeah, it was MCT training and then at West School. I'd already been away from the house, been away at school on my own, doing things, and these kids were fresh out of high school, acting a fool. And I'm like, y'all need to stop. We're in trouble. Like y'all are stupid. I remember. I'm like, what are you doing? Like I already had the skills of like I know what to do, how to compose myself. They didn't. Just like the first time away, like oh my God, I'm like this is not the place to fuck around and find out. Because if you do, you're gonna find out, and then you'll get in trouble. I'll get in trouble, and you get asked. That's not the time and place to find out. But you're right. You
Yeah. And so those couple years delay is really good. So I don't ever recommend for people joining the military right out of high school. It's not a dandy idea, you know. 20, 21, early 20s is a good age because then they have some experience just living life, doing life, And so since they have that, it's an easier um, transition into the military, but also an easier transition exiting the military because they had some skills that they came with. And while in the military, it may be put on pause because if you there's some people who also said that they feel like some of their development while they were serving was on pause.
Hmm.
I've heard that too. For other areas in terms of our ability to be a part of a team. That is developed really well. Um, for us to be able to lead, for us to be able to serve, those skills are absolutely developed in us because they're essential and integral to a part of an organization like the military, right? And so we know how to lead, but we also know how to follow. They're different skill sets,
Yeah.
but we know how to do it. I know how to lead, but I also know how to follow. And we have to be able to make that distinction, whether it's at home, whether it's at the workplace, wherever. We have to make that distinction because ultimately we don't have all the answers and we don't know everything.
Right.
Right. And so being able to lead is necessary, but being able, you know, to follow, we have to be able to do that.
And so this may seem a dumb question. So what was I gonna ask you? So this ties into what you do now, right? So do you work with young people now as far as development, or is it more so with um, veterans or those who are
I
still
work,
actually serving?
I do work with veterans. I taught at the high school for a while. And I had mostly juniors and seniors. And so for for the last 5 years, I had mostly juniors and seniors. And so with them, and I taught introduction to psychology for that group. And so it's having these types of conversations before they graduated high school. I do work with veterans and their families as well, um, for parenting classes, but also when the veteran is making that reintegration process, what does it look like for the veteran? What does it look like for the family? Because what we as veterans also have to fully conceptualize is that as the service members serve, the family is serving as well because the family is asked to do all kinds of things and the family ultimately have to carry you in your absence from the home.
Mm, that's a good point you just made. Yeah, you're right. They do.
Okay. So that's one piece. What is your role in the family? And so me knowing my role in the household and how to function fully in that role now that I'm back with my family, and it takes some adjustment. And so when an individual serve, if you're a single person, okay, your parents are serving with you. But if you are a wife or a husband and you're serving and with children, all all goddamn body is serving in that household,
Right.
you know, because then they're asked to do a lot.
Yeah, that is a lot. People don't realize it. I don't. They're not aware of it. Like it's not. I don't know what people think. It's a glorified home life. It's no. Someone goes away for 6 months or more, especially they're deployed, and they could deploy for a year, and it's a lot to have a family, and then you come back and all. So that's yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's a lot. And so I do work with those households. I enjoy doing that as well. Um, because like I said, it's really good work. Um, it's fulfilling. As an educator, so I also work at the college. I teach neuroscience and cognitive psych at the university. But veterans is a group of people that I can serve until I die, right? Because as a group, understanding service. We understand service because being a service member, we are trained to make decisions on the best long-term interests of the group. And this is where veterans struggle as they exit, and they struggle with it for a long time. Because in an organization like that, the best interest of the group is what is going to be done, because decisions are made in the best long-term interest of the group.
Right.
And so that is how we're cultured in the military, for us to make decisions based on the long-term interests and the best interests of the group, not the individual.
Right.
Now, as we exit and enter into our civilian life, it's a very individualistic society. Now, if you live in a pluralistic culture, then it's not as difficult, right? You have other types of challenges. But if you live in an individualistic society like the one we live in the United States, that's a hard transition to make, or that hard shift to make in your mind, where you come to the full realization that I have to make decision on my best long-term interests and my family's best long-term interests, not in the long-term interests of a group of people.
Right.
That's a huge mind shift for us as veterans.
Yeah, you're right. I didn't think about that. That's a jump you have to make. And no, so okay, this is the next question. So what do you think could be done? That's not what I want to say. Yeah, what do you think could be done to improve the transition from those who are serving active duty, from being active duty to coming back to family, and then even in the regular civilian world? Like, what do you think could be done? Because I see it's getting better slowly, very slowly, and I say it's because the way I look at the military, and you like this analogy. I compare it to prostitution. When you hire her for that time, you treat her all sorts of ways. You're like, yeah. As soon as you're done, get out of my house. I don't want to talk to you. You're a prostitute, whatever. And the military is like that. While you're in serving, you're taken care of. You're good to go. You're fine. But as soon as you're done, you're on your own. Don't care. Unless here's the exception. Unless in the prostitution world, if you're a high end one that makes six figures or more, their lifestyle is way different than the one in the street. They're treated way differently, make a lot more money, and they look healthy. In the military, unless you're like a high ranking enlisted or an officer, once you leave, you're fine, you're set, you're treated very differently. But if you aren't in that top, like what, 2% or something, you're on your own. So what do you think could be done better to help with that? So that way we're not just having veterans homeless on the streets, doing drugs, you know, abusing their wives, like all these things going on that are having an adverse effect on our society to this day.
Um, I the idea of having a job being enough needs to be done away with. It's not enough to have a job.
Mhm.
If that was enough, we wouldn't have the conversations that we're having. And so it's taking that mind shift of, okay, because let me reframe it for you. The military spends a lot of money in what we call militarizing us. They spend a lot of money in doing that. But the money that goes into deconstructing that there isn't that investment there, right? So you go to TAP, you do a couple workshops. Okay, I have a job, I have a place to live. That's it. And so it's recognizing, even after the person exits. So I don't know if, we have to have still the person, okay, so the person is now done, but maybe they go to some kind of course like the one I do for 2 months or 3 months or whatever, in order, because it's restructuring that person's sense of self, right? I want to frame it. Let me frame it for you in a different way. And I don't know what researcher came up with this. I need to find this guy's name and give him credit. It's called our veteran identity. And I love using that term. I love that term because it is what we are forging during the transition process. So, as we enter the military, we are taught how to be. And so now we have this new identity as being a service member. So you are your parents' child, you are a man, you are this, you're that. Now, added to these various components or dimensions of your life and your identity, you're now a service member.
Right.
Right. But because of the nature of being a service member, in psychology, we call them greedy institutions.
Oh.
And in a greedy institution, it's all or nothing. So, law enforcement, firefighting, and the armed forces, we consider those three organizations greedy institutions because they take all of you.
Right.
And it's all or nothing. It's not half in, half. No, 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 no. It's all or nothing. Right? And so we call those institutions, we call them greedy institutions. Now, as we are in this, because it is a greedy institution, being a service member literally overshadow all of the other components of our identity. It comes before you being a husband. It comes before you being a wife. It comes before you being a son. Hell, it comes before you. You understand?
Yep.
And so because it comes even before you and everything and everyone else attached to you, it overshadows everything else. Okay, so great. We are a service member. We love it. We this, we that. Now it's time to exit. Who are we now as we take off that uniform? Who are we? Right?
Right.
Now, in terms of the formation of our veteran identity, it's that process during which we make conscious, deliberate decisions about what we're going to keep from the military and what we are now going to take in this civilian world and merge it together to formulate this new identity called our veteran identity. And that is who we become moving forward. Now, for some people, that journey is 5 years. For some people, that journey is 10 years. The number, I think, for the number of years and I need to find this study and make sure I have a note of that. For some people, the number is actually 13 years, 13, 14 years for you to feel like you've made a full reintegration into the civilian sector and into this civilian world, for you to be grounded in this new sense of self and this new identity that you now have forged through the transition process.
Wow. That's a that's a process.
It is a process because remember, there are different dimensions to who we are,
Right.
right? So, what is our moral code? What is our social um, behavior, our social status? What is our economic status? What is our spiritual walk like? All of these various components of our sense of self is being restructured during this transition process. However, if our support system is limited, then it delays that journey. If our financial stability, which is why I absolutely love the work that you do, because then our financial stability and our ability to be able to manage our finances is also essential to the transition
Yeah.
because, people don't want to be worried. It's hard for people to think about other things. It's like Maslow hierarchy of needs, right? It's hard for people to think about other things if they're not financially stable, right? And so in some veterans have what we call a fiduciary, right? And the reason why some of them have to have a fiduciary is because they have one of the symptom of their mental illness is compulsive spending.
Hmm.
And so they spend like a crazy person. You can't do that. And so the VA would recommend that they have a fiduciary.
Right.
Um, and during that process, you know, that individual has to make it a point to learn to manage their finances, to learn to budget and so forth, so that they can um, manage their own money and no longer be under the auspices or the care of a fiduciary.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, this been deep. This is very deep. I didn't think about it. My own journey and process journey. No wonder there's a lot of work that needs to be done um in this to help out so many of us that come from war, transition, and really invest the time and money into that versus, okay, you got injured, we'll take care of that physically, but like the emotional part, the spiritual aspect, the mental part, it's like, we don't really want to touch that. There's
Right.
fun. And it's like, well, that's fine, but you still have to put in the services and people to actually help them heal, recover, and go through that, you know?
So I put veterans like in three or four categories. There are some veterans who never make it home.
Mm,
That's one group of people, right? And their family still needs care. That's one group. And then you have a group of veterans who make it with their entire body, but not with their mind. That's another group. And then you have some veterans who make it with their mind, but not all their parts,
right.
right? And then you have those other group of veterans who they're still alive, but they don't have their minds and they don't have use of their bodies. Okay. And so it is um, what is exciting now for me as a researcher and with the business that I do and the work that I do is the fact that we have more veterans in the researcher space that are studying various aspects of military psych, the veteran reintegration process, women veterans, Native American veterans, just looking at the whole gamut of us as a group. And it's really exciting to see that work going on and to be a part of that because we look, I said, we are a special breed,
Yep.
you know, and sometimes I say this and people laugh, but we're also an arrogant breed,
I can see
you
that.
know, and we are. And but it's also us acknowledging that and acknowledging it out loud to the people around us and the people that are important to us that one, we don't have it all together. Two, we don't have all the answers. Three, I can't carry all of that. And it's okay. It's okay to not have all of the answers. It's okay to not being able to carry all of that. It's okay to say, I am not okay with this, or I'm not okay with that. It's okay to ask for help. It is okay. And in our arrogance, sometimes we don't ask for help. We pretend as if though everything is okay. And then all everything just come, the whole London Bridge come falling down
Yep.
because we did not have the humility to say, I'm not okay. I need help with this or I need help with that. And so part of it, when working with fellow veterans, is saying that out loud, you know, and saying it, and for them to be okay with the idea of saying it out loud and admitting and acknowledging, not admitting, but acknowledging out loud that I'm not okay. Be okay with that.
Yeah. Not the
Right?
judgment.
Yeah.
Well, Dr. Jane, I say it like
It is
that.
I.
As I thank you for being on. This has been a great episode. Very deep. I didn't realize it was going to be very, very impactful too as well. For those that listen, how can they get in touch with you, what you do and stuff?
What I do, reintegrate.com, and I have, or they can just call me. So reintegrate.com on the website. And then I have my contact information actually on the website too. Or they can call me at 323-239-1302. And I'm pretty accessible, but they can always send a message in on the website and they can contact me that way as well.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah. But thank you, so much, Matt, for what you do. Um, I don't think, and then we'll close it out. I don't think people realize how important financial stability is until it's too late,
Yeah.
you know.
Things.
Yeah. And so with what you do and the work that you do, yeah, people take money for granted and people don't realize the levels that go into this thing called finance, and in the ways that it affects not just us personally but also our relationships, how we see ourselves.
Right.
And so money is not just money.
It's more true than that. So
Yeah, maybe that's going to be your new tagline: money is not just money.
I could for something else. I'll do horse in that. Money is not just money. It's a lot more. Buy my stuff. There you go.
Yeah.
Buy my shit. That's it.
Thank
Cool. All right.
you, Matt.
I appreciate you for being on. Take care.
Yes. Have a good day. Okay. Thank you so much.